I'm a little bit surprised as well, Josh, at the desk. You know, kind of none of them really wanted to go for that Paris Eternal pick because, you know, the Paris stonks, they're rising, and the Shock, arguably, I think they've looked almost their weakest since probably the start of 2019 currently.
I would absolutely say the same thing. This version of the Shock, despite the fact that they're second in the North American standings, has shown a bit of weakness, being taken to 5 maps against the London Spitfire. This is the first time this year, and the first time in a while, where you would have said that this version of the Paris Eternal is in a position where they could beat a team like the Shock. Yeah. You'd normally look at their strength of schedule and say, okay, Paris, they've got no chances in this game, but they'll probably be able to close it out against Vancouver afterwards. Paris are staring down, having an opportunity here to go 4-0 in our Summer Showdown. If they're able to secure this win, this could be a massive turn of momentum that shoots them towards the upper half of the table, which would be a monstrous achievement for a team that was built with bits and pieces from European contenders.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at the Paris starters as well. They're going to be playing in this opening match here. And yeah, I mean, I think the narrative coming forward into 2021 was that Paris were not going to be performing very well. It was this almost ragtag group of European gamers, and they've had obviously some additions coming in, like Pistola, like Drijo as well. And this Paris Eternal just looks like they have something to prove. They're coming into this. They want to be cementing their position into the Overwatch League. Every single player on this roster plays with passion, and it showcases. And the opportunity for them to take a win here today against the Shock, I mean, that's just absolutely massive.
Yes, but of course they can't count their chickens by any means. Pistola and Drijo have been great additions to this Paris Eternal squad, especially Pistola. I've been very happy with him. But the big star players are Naga and Khan. Those are the people, in my opinion, that you should be keeping your eyes on throughout this match. But Bren, honestly, the Paris Eternal starters, it's what you expect. It's the Shock, actually, for me, that have a very different lineup going on here. And that's where I think things start to get very interesting. Because when you take a look at this starting lineup of the San Francisco Shock, there's one name that has been in perpetuity for the Shock, who is now absent. Violet is sitting on the bench for the first time this season. They've tried him at the flex support role, obviously. They've tried him at the McCree long-range hit scan role. They've had him replace FD God in some of these scenarios. The last time they played Nepal against the London Spitfire, it was a backline of Violet and FD God. This time, Twilight is coming in. So I can't express how wild this is. The people have had so many questions about Violet's place on this team. In my opinion, he is, when he's playing it, the best flex support that we have in the entire league. But the chopping and changing that Shock have done with his position have not been favorable to him. So I think this could be a good look for the Shock.
It certainly could be, and yeah, we're going back to the Super Nintendo days, I think, real quick. Taking a look at this one, yeah, getting ready to get these guys into the game. Let's take a look at our first map, which is going to be Nepal, and it's definitely intriguing. The Shock, you know, typically over the course of the season, when they've been making these chops and changes with rosters and in particular role positions changes with Violet, sometimes it just hasn't really worked out for them. And this is a Paris Eternal where, honestly, everybody is buying into this team currently. They are looking like they are potentially going on a tear. It's a big question mark, I think, coming into this match as well, is which Paris are we going to be seeing? Are we going to see the Paris Eternal that turned up at the second half of their match against the Gladiators, or the first half? Because they were almost two different teams entirely in terms of how they were playing.
They completely were. I mean, the Paris Eternal had to reverse sweep that game, our best reverse sweep of the season for sure, against the Gladiators. But like people are saying, this transitive property of Paris beat Gladiators, Gladiators beat Shock, therefore Paris should beat Shock. It doesn't work in reality a lot of the time. There's things you have to consider, like people's form in different maps, the styles that they play as well. And the styles of both of these teams coming in on Nepal, when you have Super in, you're expecting there to be quite a bit of Rhine played. That normally paired quite well with Violet's Batiste, so I'm interested to see here whether Twilight is running more Ana. On the other side of things, Paris have shown a versatility. It was Nepal where they were able to close out against the Gladiators with Dan moving over to the ball, but they normally like to begin on the Rhine.
They do. Paris, big fans of these types of compositions. You can see the Sim TPs come through, so they're going to be rolling out deep, and the Shock are coming out with this kind of composition. Very poke orientated, playing around these Bionades as well. Hack targets from Blister. And And yeah, it's going to be very important that they focus down the appropriate targets. Lovely little bit of peel there from Vestola, actually. Pushing away Super as he went for the power driver down, but it's not enough. That'll be Onigod falling early on. A great opening pick for them, removing a ton of damage now from the Paris Eternals composition. And they can just wait it out, pick off the targets slowly one at a time here. The Shock should be taking it.
And already Twilight is showing his offensive ability on this Ana. He landed a big Bionade onto both of the DPS players of the Paris Eternal, and that's how Onigod ended up falling. So now there's major swaps coming out from Paris. They want to essentially go for a similar style. The Ball, the Diva coming out to play here. And it looked like Onigod was flirting with a couple of different picks, but in the end, Naga's going to run the Echo up damage boosted to be able to try and contest Nero in the skies. Puts a lot of pressure on Nero here.
Definitely does. I mean, Echo should have the advantage in that kind of matchup. Even when you're being pocketed, Khan goes down. Nero going for the rocket into the beatdown. Full 1-2 combo there, but that opening pick, I mean, it's just essentially staved off the Paris Eternal. They're going to get the res off onto Khan here, so looking to try and repush this now, but look at the amount of damage that Vestola's taken. It's going to be D-Max straight away. Troy just knows he can chase him down. Still going to be healthy as well, has the defense matrix. Point slowly getting flipped over. Is anybody from the Shock going to be able to touch this? Yes, they've just about started to contest it now.
It was Twilight that died, though. The reason that Dana Vestola went so aggressive was to be able to pick out that pick. The same thing that Super and Choyogun did themselves. And now Nero, he has that ultimate to be able to make use of. Just uses it into Dan. And Glister, even though he's getting close to his EMP, I don't think this is particularly turnable unless Khan dies. And he just doesn't. He beams people down from the back line. That's his job. That's what he's been doing all season long.
It's absolutely frying them, man. It's going to be the Nano Boost applied onto Super here just to try and keep this point ticked over. Maybe able to stall it up, but eventually brought down. There's Vestola as well, getting that damage boost just to tickle in that damage. A couple of more kills going their way, but eventually point flipped over now for the Paris Eternal. Plenty of ults to be using as well coming into this next fight, including Naga. You can see he's got a duplicate there ready and waiting.
It was a good stall from the San Francisco Shock, and they've built time for Glister to be able to get up to his first EMP as well. I'm interested to see what they manage to get done with this. An EMP into a backline to be able to catch Khan, or maybe onto one of the tanks would be an even better option. See him sizing up, gonna try and maybe combine it there with the pile drive coming through and the bomb. That is gorgeous.
Onigod, though, responds almost instantly. The pulse bomb comes through. Choi can't get in the remake, and FD-God goes down as well. Drijo with the res onto Khan, just completely removing that pick off that the Shock were able to get, and still in control of the point here. The Shock to be in a position to recontest this one. You can see Naga just trying to make the most, I suppose, of the Ana in the final few moments, but yeah, not too much to be gained from it.
And one of the big difference makers is that now that Nero feels forced to swap over to Echo, Naga's pretty much controlling the skies. Naga's so good when it comes to the Echo, and Nero hasn't quite been able to find the impact he's looking for at the moment. Getting bullied out of these positions that he'd love to play with, especially because he has to deal with Khan beaming him down.
Oh, and he got taken out Glister. That is a nasty loss here for the Shock, and Twilight will fall. FD-God as well. Paris still in control. I don't think they even had to use any ultimates just to try and take that one, so this is looking very, very good right now for the Paris Eternal in position with the amplification matrix. The Shock in the stem that's got to be trying to play into this one now. They're going to be finding it hard. Obviously, they have the Nano Boost as well, which is going to be a great initiation tool if they choose to use it. Super as well is going to be going straight in. Has the mines, not going to be opting to use it though at the moment. Now is going to be using them. Onigod trying to find this one pick off into the back line. Twilight gets the Nano off. Might be able to get a bit more though. Onigod still just zipping and zooping around into the back line, but Super falls. Not going to have your main tank in this fight. The overtime's still ticking. Someone's got to try and touch this and keep it going, but Glister just rolls right into the mines. Unideal, and that's going to be the round going here to the Paris Eternal.
Such a limp performance from the Shock as soon as Paris swapped over to mirror the ball. Honestly, it was. In that final engagement, Nero takes the Nano Boost, goes forwards, and we don't see his POV, but there's essentially no damage done to the Paris Eternal. I'm taking a look up at the top of the screen, seeing if Nero's getting a large amount of work done with that Nano, and there's nothing. Khan just holding his ground, utilizing the Immortality field, popping down an Amp Matrix, and Nero can't do anything. You're putting too much weight on Nero's shoulders there to have to deal with Naga on Echo, mirroring him, and Khan's Batiste. And the pressure from Super and Glister wasn't synced up well enough. That is a rough beginning for the Shock. A lot of mistakes in terms of their coordination there on that comp. give Paris an early advantage.
Yeah, and Paris now going to be running these Reinhardt compositions, and you can argue that the Shock might also be more comfortable when they're playing this. Don't have to sync up the previous comp that they were playing, you know, with a lot of the damage coming their way. The Maywall comes through. Oh, no. It's a clash of styles straight away, but Nero falls. The Shock are not going to have the Maywall now into this fight. And Naga, you can see him just freezing them all up, putting in that lovely bit of beam damage. And yeah, off the back of that one pickoff onto Nero, it's easy done now for the Paris Eternal to cap up this point.
Yeah, I don't understand how Nero dies at the beginning of that fight. He has his freeze to be able to work with to keep himself alive, but must have just been caught out. But it's not like there's that much burst damage coming out from Paris. Maybe a headshot from Naga or something like that. It's Vistola that ends up finishing the kill, but I don't know who did the majority of the damage. He just died before he could react.
You got to remember as well, they're playing on slightly higher ping because it's the Paris Eternal game. And that could play a factor. Like Nero, you know, might not be able to find the timing of the ice block because of that reasoning. That's a lot of damage invested there. Drijo falling so low. Just getting out of there now, and still Paris in control of the point. They have the Amp Matrix as well, but so does Twilight. The Shock might opt to use it. There we go. Goes straight down. Traded on either side. The ice block going to be used. Now the wall. Bit of a miss there from the Paris Eternal. And Vistola in the back line gets caught. Demec'd, removed from the fight, but not before Glister is as well. So that's, again, damage going to be gone. The Paris Eternal committing the ultimate. Super going for the charge into the wall, but that's a massive shatter. 2 on the deck. Naga has to use the ice block just for a moment to try and survive this one. Dan still fighting, still swinging away. The shatter is going to be missing there. Not connecting onto FD God like he was intending it to. The point flipped over now to the Shock. It's the first signs of life we've seen from them in this match so far.
Yeah, well played by the Shock in terms of flipping that one over. A lot of damage done with Super's Fire Strike through the Amp Matrix onto Dan and Vistola. Vistola just felt like he had to charge through Twilight's Amp Matrix to be able to make space for the rest of Paris. Paris invested a huge amount of ultimates in there as well. Double support ultimate, double DPS ultimate, and the Shatter. They don't have any tools to be able to push back in with here. Nero should have a free Blizzard if he can just navigate around Vistola's defense matrix.
Yeah, it's a great wall from Nero. Catch Dan out. The TP was in the backline though, so they kind of swapped around the positioning, but it's futile at the end of the day. Just gonna have to disengage and rethink how they want to push into this one here. And for the Shock now, they've got this Blizzard online. Nero's gonna be trying to use that to try and lock up Paris when they're trying to push into this one. It can be quite difficult, I think, actually, to try and get the value, funnily enough, as well, when you're up against the Sim TP. It gives you a bit more mobility to avoid it, but
they do still have the Amp Matrix to work around too. I mean, Twilight's going to be able to pop this right at the beginning, and they should be able to do a huge amount of damage. Make the position a bit more predictable as well. There's a Fire Strike through it. Catches Khan, and suddenly it looks like the Shock are fully in control. The big problem here for Paris was that they used 4 ultimates in that losing fight. They just haven't even been able to take a fair engagement, because every time they push, the Shock have got the threats of these ults or the ults themselves to be able to work around. Nero still hasn't been required to use the Blizzard. There hasn't been a fight on the point where he felt like he could get value out of it. And now you're going up against Super's ult as well, which is again going to put mind games into Dan's head.
Absolutely. Now, again, I hate to bring it up, but the Sim TP can be quite big when you're trying to play around these ultimates. I know it's quite painful for a lot of these Reinhardt mains, and there we go. Yeah, they're in the point. When the Amp Matrix down, the point is essentially theirs, so the Shock can't afford to contest it. The Blizzard's going to come through around the corner here. They're going to look for opportunities. A bit of jittering here as we're going to see the Blizzard hopefully getting some value there from Naga in the end. Fight continuing, and it looks like it did go the way there at the Paris Eternal.
Yeah, the rest of the San Francisco Shock just getting caught in that, and that was a huge amount of damage onto Choyobin that ended up demeching him and setting up Naga for a free Blizzard. And those are the scenarios that Shock cannot allow. Nero has not found an opportunity to use his Blizzard at all here. Paris Eternal going to try and push forward towards the choke in a really aggressive defense. Who from the Shock can touch this objective? It's going to be Super. They still have Nero here. The wall is good as well, and the Blizzard surely to come out afterwards.
Yeah, they're going to try and find the opportunities here. My feed is completely chopping and changing. Josh, you're going to have to take it away.
Well, the San Francisco Shock have mopped it up. Nero finally finding value from the Blizzard as they all entered. A great teleport as well, honestly, from Glister to be able to get them in position. That aggressive defense from the Paris Eternal, it didn't work out. And now the Shock are able to respond. It has not been perfect from either team, it's got to be said, but we are at 1-1 heading into the third round here. And there have been a range of different styles that we've seen from both of these squads. It has been slower paced, though, than we've seen from some of our other teams. Both of these team styles are trending more towards slowing the game down and controlling it.
Certainly has. Hopefully my internet's cleaned up as well, so I'll be able to actually watch the game this time. And
That'd be helpful.
Yeah, it would be, as we're heading into the final round between these two teams. And definitely can tell that it was a little bit shaky at the beginning of that round for the Shock, but much more comfortable when they can play these brawly compositions. Obviously, it's also within the Paris Eternals' wheelhouse. They like to play these Reinhardt comps. It's kind of what Europe has been running for the longest time now.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it ends up concluding here in the final round here of Nepal. It's almost like a stalemate between the Lucios.
Yeah, both of my eyes are on these French Lucio players to be able to see what value they can get done. Drijo and FD God are going to be hunting for boops, environmental kills constantly throughout this. You can see him wall riding, and there's a sim TP. The Shock are playing the point.
Yeah, the Shock just rotate all the way around. They're actually going to take the TP. I'm very surprised that they ended up opting for that. The point flips over. The control goes to the Shock here. In the backline, Naga has the ice box. Is going to be surviving. Drijo falls, though. Twilight taking him out. And it was a scrappy engagement there from the Paris Eternal. It looked like they were questioning whether or not they wanted to take the Sim TP to contest against the Shock. The Shock were more than ready with the positioning advantage they had.
Yeah, just a little bit faster in terms of their decision-making there, the Shock. And that's what you want to see from them in order to get Shock back to their full selves. They looked a little slow, a little sluggish when they were playing against London and ended up getting taken to 5. It's all about pace of decision-making, I think, that separates the good teams from the great. And we're looking at a lot of ults being available here as well. There's the symmetric teleport again. Gives Paris Eternal the better positioning and that wall to be able to deny the Shock from coming in.
Yep, the wall is lovely as well. It completely removes the amp matrix, or the threat of it. And Paris Eternal, that was their big ultimate. They were looking to try and at least get back onto this point, flip it over in their favor, but the Shock more than ready for it, and that is going to be an easily 1-5 for them here. And again, the ult rotation comes up for them. Paris do have some bits and pieces to work with themselves. They've got the Blizzard, obviously, the Sim Wall on top of that, as well as the Shatter. But the positioning in control for the Shock here, and that's arguably more important in this kind of scenario.
It definitely is. If you're keeping track at home, that is 1-0 in terms of environmental kills to FD God as well. There it is, Blizzard's traded, but eaten up by Choyobin. He's been listening to Jonathan, decided to bring his A-game here against the Paris Eternal. Choyobin striking early on, and that is massive. I mean, that's
look at
a very difficult scenario for Paris to be able to come back from here, honestly, because the Shock won that fight so cleanly. Paris now with 10 seconds to get to the point and win a team fight.
Yeah, and Super was teasing the idea of taking a forward engagement. The Shatter comes down from Super. Not sure if it connected. Dan, his turn to return, but again, no targets. Going to be stunned up here. The symbol across the Paris Eternal trying to lead it in as the beats are traded out. Nero falls. Not a lot of damage for them. Choi sending the bomb right over. I believe a majority of the damage there blocked up by the symbol still of Oni God. Sending it off onto the point. Super so low. Has to back off inside, but they're just taking way too much damage as well as the Paris Eternal are just chunking them down, trying to return back to the point. They did manage to get it to 99%. The Paris Eternal obviously had to invest a lot of ultimates as well to try and take that one now. But this time the Shock are going to be on the attacking front.
I'm amazed that Paris were able to turn that around, and unfortunately it's once again an early death from Nero. It does seem like his Mei gets caught out a little more than you would want from a DPS player on the Shock. They're going to try and get in. Glista very weak. They're going to pop his ultimate to try and keep him safe. Naga's invested the Blizzard as well, but it's caught everybody. 3 players just frozen up on the objective. It's scrappy, but it looks like it's Paris's.
It is going to be Paris's, yeah. Wonderful, wonderful work from them as well, keeping this one going. Dan did go down at the tail end of the fight. That might mean they can't take forward positioning like they might want to, especially that. Look at the Shock. They don't want to give up, essentially, the space. They've got a couple of players in, so the Shock are going to be able to contest this pretty quickly without being stopped at this initial choke point. And Matrix online as well.
Yeah, both teams looking like they're going for symmetric teleports to play aggressively, and they know that either team has the Ant Matrix. What a boot! That was a little bit of Super and FD God working together there, and he lays down the Shatter. It's so free.
Yeah, it is going to be a free fight for them. I mean, a little bit of an assist there, like you're saying, Josh. The boop, along with the hammer swing, just too much momentum. Dan just couldn't escape it, straight off the edge. Opened it up as well. No shield in place to block the Shatter. The wall just for extra measures. And there you go. The San Francisco Shock are going to be taking map number 1 here against the Paris Eternal.
Good work closing it out in that final round as well. Sets Shock up early, but Paris looked very competent there. They had their opportunities to be able to come back in and win, and it's not been perfect from the Shock. They don't look like they've come into this with an impossibly strong desire to win, like you could see in some of their previous seasons where it almost seemed impossible for them to contemplate defeat. This series, it's still very, very possible that it could go the distance.
Absolutely. From what we've seen of Paris in the past as well, you never know when a series might just get turned on its head. It's been a good one so far as well, and as well, I think the signs of life we've seen from the Paris Eternal means that, you know, this one could potentially be going the distance. Going to go to a short break, and on the other side of things, we're going to see just what the Paris Eternal might have up their sleeves to try and even up the scoreline. Don't go anywhere.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest and fastest 5G network. Set your sights on the competition with T-Mobile. The Overwatch League is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of the Overwatch League, and by IBM, the official cloud and AI partner of the Overwatch League.
Welcome back from the break, everybody, and yeah, we're heading into the action momentarily. We have a ton of little swaps and changes to talk about as well, as both teams are going to be chopping and changing up their rosters for the second map that we're heading into. The Shock obviously currently leading, as you can see at the bottom of your screen, but let's get into it here. Suna's going to be in for Naga on the Pass Eternal side, and on the Shock side, making some big sweeping changes.
Yes. Ants comes in for Nero to play long-range hit scan. Great to see Ants in as well. He played 2 maps against the Gladiators, but then wasn't really fielded against the London Spitfire. Got Smurf coming in for Super, which indicates that they're going to be playing more Winston compositions. So Winston, probably Glister on Tracer, Ants on long-range hit scan. And that also means that Violet is coming in to sub in for FD God, probably playing the Brigitte most of the time. So you've got that Anna Brig backline. There are a lot of changes, and it's been a topic of conversation for the Shock. Can they manage a roster that chops and changes this much? But in both of their prior championship years, they did quite a bit of chopping and changing. Not necessarily every map or map to map, but especially last year in 2020, they were fairly regularly changing pieces around. So I feel like the coaching staff has proven that they have a decent understanding of how to do that. It's just about getting the right people in. It's not necessarily the swaps that can cause the problems. Bren, here's a little factoid for you as well before we just head into our second map. That is the first time since week 8 that Shock have won the first map of a series. And their opponent in week 8 was the Vancouver Titans. So that was the last time they won map 1 in a series. All the rest of the time, they've been dropping these opening control maps, something they never did in 2020. It was one of the cores of how they won last year. The entire season, the championship as well, they were almost unbeatable on control and hybrid. This year, it is not the same. But this is a step in the right direction going forward.
Yeah, we're heading over to Gibraltar as well. And here for our map leaderboard presented by Xfinity, you can see the Shock do hold the current record time against the Pass Eternal as well in 2020. Yeah. That 4-minute 30-second time back.
Obviously not the same Paris Eternal squad, but arguably a better one as well. That was the Paris Eternal from last year that was able to have a rivalry with the San Francisco Shock, and a lot of those players ended up moving over to the Dallas Fuel too. So this is a tough one. The Shock are normally very good on Gibraltar. Part of the reason for that was because it so heavily favors the Tracer Ashe kind of setup, so Tracer Widowmaker. Essentially, you have Glister playing Tracer and Ants on some kind of long-range hit scan. And when the Shock had access to Ants and Striker, that was just GG, go next. But now with Glister, I think there's a number of more questions, and with Ants only recently coming back into the lineup, how dominant does this DPS line actually look?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, when it, like you were saying, when it was Ants and Striker, those guys were just unstoppable when they were playing in their respective roles, and Ants as a player was really quite impressive. I think he's done a good job to try and I guess adjust on short notice and come back in, and he's been playing pretty well. But it comes down to the team synergy and building that back up is one of the big things, I think, when you're stepping back into the game like Ants is.
I also want to point out that I was wrong with my predictions of what comp they would be running. This is a pure poke composition here. Smurf on the ball and Violet playing the Zenyatta. So we haven't really seen the Shock run too much poke comp. They've been mostly playing the Winston stuff or the Rhine stuff. Now we've got Violet playing his best role. I mean, his Zenyatta is just unbelievable.
Yes, and the Paris Eternal are going to be trying to match them here with this composition. You have to play almost picture perfect in terms of how you're coordinating your shots with the rest of your team as well. It's kind of poke comps just chipping each other down. The Paris Eternal are slowly getting a bit of card control, as you can see them just starting to push that right around the corner, and they've pushed the Shock off the high ground, which is the more important part and takeaway from this. You can see Smurf is going up there to try and engage and push them away. It's very important to just not allow their hit scan a position to just shred into you from the high.
Absolutely. You'll see the Discord orbs most of the time be put onto those wall players to try and put pressure on them. Only got to had it on him just then, and Smurf finishes off the kill. Well played. But there's a counter dive in the back as Violet falls too. This is getting scrappy, but Ants is in such a good position, Brett.
Yeah, the Paris Eternal though have bought enough space for them to get that res back onto Onigod, and Twilight going down could be disastrous for them. The cart's going to keep moving just underneath this bit of a car wash section here. You can see it just being contested up. Smurf just trying to keep it from really moving forwards, buying time for the Shock to get back into this one. But with Troy going down, a spell a dangerous situation for them. The Dynamite just catching onto the wing there of the cart. Arn's still in the fight, built up the bomb, and now he's going to be using it. I'm not sure where it actually went. Onigod ends up taking it out anyway.
Damage boost from the Mercy and the Discord Orb means that Bob dies very quickly on there. Glista just misses the timing on being able to contest that dive from Dan and Suna. And it looks like the Shock are just slowly giving space. They might be able to try and recontest this if Violet can get his trance, but it's not looking good.
No, the Transcendence comes through. Violet wants to keep contesting this one. That's going to be the Gravitic Flux, though, sending a bunch of the players straight up into the air. And Vastola, of course, going to be decimating them. And it really does feel like that the Shock are struggling to get a foothold there. On that first point, it was just slowly being pushed back by the damage that the Paris Eternal were taking. All the props to them as well in terms of their understanding of what parts of the map to take, what was important to prioritize as well. And they've actually taken control of the shuttle as well, which is also very important.
The most important part of Gibraltar is understanding which positions to dominate, especially when you're playing these poke comps. And Paris are all over them. They're slowly taking high ground, pushing away the San Francisco Shock, and then electrically jumping onto that B high ground. And it just gives them opportunities to do stuff like this. Violet's in a poor position where he can't get away from Tsuna. Ants gets dived on, and Twilight picked off. It's just domination, and Suna has control of all the map. It makes such a difference on Gibraltar if you just have good positions.
It's the slow siege. How do the Shock play back into this one now? They've got a couple of ultimates to use, but when they're being held against this choke point, the Gravitic Flux being committed. This is disastrous right now. Smurf is going to be using the mines in close quarters. It does take out Dan, but they just cannot get them away from the shuttle. Still into the fight. The Bob is going to be used now to just try and stop them from pushing this cart. And Arn's at a bit of an off angle here. It's going to buy them a bit of time for the players to get back in, and Khan going down is a huge pickoff. Are they going to be able to deny the Resurrect that might be coming out from them? You can see the Valkyrie coming through. Glista going to be missing that pulse bomb. On he got with the Bob in the back line. The Valkyrie, Drijo does get the res off there onto Khan, eventually beamed down in the process, and Violet going to be resed back into it as well. But with the mines on the cart, nobody can contest it. 4 minutes and counting now for the Paris Eternal.
Gorgeous play from Paris. They are so coordinated in terms of how they are. Like you said, Brent, just slowly taking map control away from San Francisco, always putting them in rough positions. And because the Shock are committing to team fights that they don't have a great chance of winning, like the Gravitic Flux at the end there, the collapse onto checkpoint A, they're giving up map control. Like here again, Paris are so far forwards already, straight off the rip, and Violet dies. Twilight is going to be able to get the res, but it just burns such an important cooldown so early on. And the players from Paris have taken good positions, really, like 10 seconds before the fight even occurs.
Yeah, a solid understanding of how they want to be taking this fight. Khan falls. Res coming through. The Boop's not going to be able to disjoint it, but the kill comes through anyway with the damage being done. Smurf falls, though. Trying to roll down to the low ground, and Violet with his Transcendence, he gets absolutely nothing from it. Glista falling, as Khan will take him out. Power Driver onto the staircase. Violet in a bit of trouble here. He's being pressured so heavily, and they're going to chase him down and take him out. 3 minutes now, with the Paris Eternal showing no signs of slowing down.
Khan is absolutely dominating as well. He's going to pop this Transcendence towards the end just because he's getting pressured by Smurf. I guess it lets him get the res off onto Tsuna, but he's just been like an artillery cannon firing out from Paris. Whenever Glista's tried to contest him, Khan's been popping him in the head. So difficult for Shock to come out with these hero plays that get them back into team fights.
God almighty, the mines come through. Bob onto the point as well. Pushes him away ever so slightly. Suna is an absolute menace on the battlefield right now. He's causing so much danger for them, but it's going to be turned in the process anyway. Glista comes out the spawn doors, takes down Dan, takes down Khan. Little two-piece for them. And finally, they're going to be stopping this bleeding. I mean, this was an absurd push coming out from the Paris Eternal to be able to take it this far, really making the Shock sweat.
This is the first time that their momentum has been halted the entire map. It's been a slow siege, the slow roll. And now it becomes important for the Shock to have great coordination between Glista and Smurf, because Paris want to set Khan and Onigod up on these long sight lines, and you can't let them do that.
The Gravitic Flux obviously going to be getting the value. Khan ended up using his Transcendence in the previous fight. And it's a good approach there from the Shock as well. Just pressuring down to the back line. They realized there was an opening there off the back of these ultimates. And this is a good position for the Shock to be in. As much as I've been singing the praises of the Paris Eternal to take it this far and getting it all the way to this third checkpoint, now the momentum does kind of switch around. On the plus side, Paris Eternal do have a ton of ultimates.
They definitely do. And the kill onto Glister means that he's not in a position to go aggressive onto Khan or onto Onigod as they set up. So even though he respawns and he's back in the fight now, that positioning difference means Suna can mark him and stop him from being a harassment to the backline. It should allow Onigod and Khan to get into better positions.
Khan takes out Arns, but yeah,
that's
as the pulse bomb. Vastola falls. Rez comes through though. Vastola also going to have that gravitic flux if they choose to use it into this upcoming fight. Nice pulse bomb as well. Connects onto Troy, the Rez onto Arns. And now the Transcendence has faded, which means the gravitic flux is going to be used here by Vastola to try and at least get a kill. Arns drops straight down onto the floor. Half HP on him, removed by Dan. Violet though still at the spawn door. No one's been able to really put pressure onto him, and he's got that shield to hide behind as well. Pumping in the damage. Takes a look at Khan and says, if you can do it, I can as well. Trying to slam in the shots off onto the high ground, pushing them away. The fight continues. That is Bob going for a ride straight off the car. Surfing off of it. 15 seconds remaining though. And this is looking dangerous for them. The pulse bomb comes down. Glister gets the kill off of it. The recall as well on 15 health. Almost getting the one clip as well onto Khan. Khan getting healed back up, but pressured indoors now. And that is a dangerous situation to be in. Glister, with the help of his team, able to clean up the remnants of the Paris Eternal on this point. And they're going to be stopped just short of that third and final checkpoint.
So it ends up being not a terrible defense from the Shock, because they halted the momentum that one time. And that's what Gibraltar is all about. You're trying to set up in good positions and then keep momentum going. The way the spawns work on Gibraltar, especially overtime spawns, and all of the positioning, you need to be able to capitalize on your victories to get into good positions for the next team fight really quickly. Now that Paris Eternal know what their win condition is on defense, they can also reprioritize where they put up their defense. Like for example, they know that they don't have to desperately defend checkpoint A. They can, you know, if it ends up getting risky there, they can give it up and just keep high ground control on checkpoint B. They have more options available to them, I think, because they know exactly the portions of the maps they need to defend. This is still looking all right. Oh, and they've gone for a totally different comp as well, Brent. They're going to try and up the pace. As Shock try and escort their poke comp into positions on the high ground, they're going to try and dive onto it with Dan and build up those nano boosts and play very aggressively with Dan and Suna combining together. We'll see whether this forces a strategy change out of the Shock too.
Yeah, it gives you a ton of staying power onto this high ground as well if you think about what they're running. Anybody tries to dive onto them, you get shield bashed, get flash banged. It's going to be hard for them to push them away. And yeah, we'll see. The Shock, obviously unaware of this just yet, might opt to make some changes off the back of their scouting. The TP across is going to be quickly getting into position to try and take this fight. And now they've spotted out what they're running. Shock's still going to be committing with this composition, and it is just trying to, again, just press upon them, I guess, on the high ground here. Just trying to take the space across the bridge, but now the engagement comes through. Bubble layered down. Dan, his initiation in. Obviously, they can't stop it. They had to just burn through so much damage with the double bubble coming through. And that is a wonderful engagement.
That is fantastic, because not only does it win you the opening team fight, it starts your ult cycle going. And that's the most important thing about Paris' comp, is it has much better ultimates to cycle compared to the Shocks. For the Shock, they're going to have Glister just push the payload. Hopefully he can push Sooner away and get poke damage from Ants and from Violet. But they've got to worry about those aggressive dives. It was so well coordinated from Paris.
They're still going to try and take the fight around this cart here. You can see the Discord Orb is on Dan. He has to just leap straight up into the high ground to avoid a lot of the damage coming his way. Onigo with a quick headshot. Almost taken out Glister. And they've got the mark now onto Smurf. Smurf will be taken out. Rijodo caught. Flashbang prediction. Not going to be connecting there from Onigod, as he thought that he might be able to catch the blink. They don't deny the res onto Smurf either. And the nano boost onto Dan now. Needs to get some work done, but they just disengage completely away from them. Could be anyone's fight still, the way this is going. But the longer it goes, Paris are going to be able to get the spawners coming back in, and now the ultimate's forced out. So you can see the Primal Rage of Dan collecting up a bunch of kills, really able to finalize that team fight for them. And so in a position now to try and hold on here. The Shock, though, they managed to drag out a bunch of ultimates there from Paris, but Violet going down is not ideal.
Yeah, Violet getting flashbang and taken out. This is what I'm talking about with the ult cycling. Khan's nano boost onto Dan allows him to build up the primal, which allows him to close out that fight. And it gives Paris Eternal, again, another win. This is half of the time bank already disappeared for the Shock, and they've not once been able to get their players into good positions. They want to take control of server room and blue box, and Paris are always fighting over it.
Glister just trying to take the jewel. He wins it out. Onigot goes down, and that was with Suna also marking him. Violet falls. Tyler possibly able to get the res off in this situation as well. You can see now the Valkyrie's going to be popped off here. Post-bomb, lay it down. That bubble actually eats up a ton of the damage in the process, but the Shocker finally managed to chunk their way right through this defense that the Paris Eternal were putting up. So they're going to get this capture. Critical capture of that. It was almost looking like a very dangerous scenario, possibly the full hold here for the Paris Eternal.
It definitely was. It was looking real dangerous, and the fact that Khan didn't get up to another nano to apply onto Dan was really the difference maker, I think. Now for Shock, it's so important that you get these kills. You can't allow the Paris Eternal to keep control of this high ground.
Nano boost?
Nano boosted brig in your face as well. Just, like I said, just to keep their backline alive and make sure that Paris control the high ground. This scrappy engagement is really important. And now the fact that Paris have not just been pushed back to spawn, now that Arns and Violet are still fighting from the low ground, it is so much better for Paris on this defense.
Yeah, look at the high ground control. It's going to be pushing into them. They can choose to engage, and Dan just drops down, has the bubble, so he knows he's not going to get bursted. Leaps back up and away, but Vastola goes down to Choi. Pushed out here, the Transcendence comes through. Violet has to push forwards, and Arns is just clicking on heads. Just Arns things, I guess. Little two-piece for him. Nicely done. Big Bionade off onto the side there. Arns will go down. The Paris Eternal just still unwilling to give up this high ground position. But the longer they do this, the more this card is getting pushed further and further out of their control. Smurf just trying to, I guess, chew them up here into the corner. Glister with the post bomb right down. Drijo will fall. Suna still in the fight though, and that's Choi gone. Can't moving down. Onigod might need to contest it. His shots ring true, so Smurf will be taken out, and it feels like the Paris are going to be holding this one. Yeah, they are in control still, so
it's their ult.
Just about getting it.
It's the primal from Dan. They committed to that team fight forever, and like you said, it just seemed like, oh, well, eventually it'll just go the way of the Shock. The problem is the Paris' ultimates are just so much better. As soon as Dan or Khan get their ultimates online, or that rally comes up, the Paris Eternal can team fight and be able to pick off the squishy targets from the Shock and turn it into their advantage.
Very Flux indoors. Grabs used by Vastola. Hasn't actually catched onto anybody. A lot of ults committed now as the Shock are trying to take this fight, but Smurf goes down. The res comes through indoors, and Khan, his position was forced there by the mines that came out from Smurf. Couldn't run anywhere, is taken out as well. Onigod now down onto the low ground, and he can't go anywhere. Smurf rolls through him, and that's the capture. The Paris Eternal, they had bodies to try and chuck at that to try and buy a bit more time, but ultimately the Shock now, this is where they can really start to shine. These long sight lines in the final stretch of Gibraltar is where this composition might just really come alive.
Absolutely. Paris now are in their worst position of the entire map, because with 2.5 minutes left, the San Francisco Shock are going to dominate these sight lines. Now they need to go incredibly aggressive. Suna and Dan need to be destroying Violet or Arns if they set up. You can see how aggressive Paris Eternal have set themselves up. Do the Shock anticipate this? Bionade up onto Arns? I don't know. They might be able to get out with their lives here.
Yeah, Glister's just trying to distract, I suppose, as well, and pull Suna away so he can coordinate and dive with the rest of the team. Suna's really the only one who's contesting up this card as well. And it cancelled out of the Deadeye. What an unbelievable accretion from Choi Hobin. And Glister wins out that fight against Suna as well. Taking him out, the post bomb, that is perfect. Dan's going to be taken out of the fight as well.
Who contests?
And who is going to be able to stop this whatsoever in the process? 2 points already. Vastola has to just use the boosters to get right back onto it sooner as well, but they've taken so much damage in the process, and the positioning's flipped around. Khan's in no man's land.
The Paris Eternal are just desperately coming out here, but now that the Shock have Arns and Violet set up in these positions, it's game over. It was game over as soon as that Paris Eternal dive did not work effectively for them. It was game over as soon as Paris weren't able to hold on with that high ground control on checkpoint B. It looked dangerous for the Shock, but they've muscled their way to a 2-0 advantage. Paris are going to have to reverse sweep, the same as they did against the Gladiators, if they want to put this one up on the standings.
I think people are still going to be looking at this scoreline and maybe the answer, or at least people will be saying, well, why didn't we expect this? At the end of the day, this is a new and improved Paris Eternal squad. This is a team that is giving a lot of teams trouble at the moment, currently in the 2021 season. We'll see on the other side of the break if they're able to pull off the seemingly impossible, much like they did against the Gladiators, and potentially get that reverse sweep. We'll find out soon enough. Don't go anywhere.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest and fastest 5G network. Set your sights on the competition with T-Mobile. And by State Farm. For auto, home, or renters insurance, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. The Overwatch League is brought to you by Cheez-It Grooves. So much flavor, it's a mind crunch. TeamSpeak, the official voice supplier of the Overwatch League. And by NetApp, the official data management partner of the Overwatch League.
A new tournament means a new bracket is unlocked, so don't be like me and forget to put in your pick'ems like I did last week. Can you get the perfect bracket for the Summer Showdown? Well, go to pick'em.overwatchleague.com to submit your picks for this week's matches. And yeah, I mean, I'm guilty of it last week. Josh, you're guilty of it almost every week, I think.
I actually submitted my picks for this week, though.
Did you?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, my pick for this game was a 3-2 win for the San Francisco Shock, which I think it could still happen, you know? I thought the Shock would be able to come out on top here, that they might be able to benefit from the slightly slower pace of the Paris Eternal compared to how fast the Gladiators play. But it seems like they're, at the moment, outclassing Paris by... It is still thin margins, but it's consistent thin margins.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's take a look here at our power rankings of IBM Watson. And we're looking at our Lucio power rankings here. There's one name that's ringing true at number 2 in these rankings. It's FD God. And he's been, I guess, under quite a bit of scrutiny, I think, from fan narratives and whatnot. Sure. A lot of fans, obviously, love to just blame it on one individual. He's been catching a lot of flack for it recently, which, you know, there's an argument to be made that Overwatch is a bit of a team game. Generally speaking, one person is not the crux of all your problems. But he's not going to be coming in here today. I mean, we do see substitutions being made. As you can see that Naga is in as well for Suna, so we're seeing him coming back in to play whatever role that they want him to play. And on the other side of things, a Shock also making adjustments.
Yeah, Nero comes in for Ants and Super in for Smurf as well. And like you said, no FD God, which is something that I was potentially expecting for Hanamura, because they've previously been running like Violet FD God as their support line when they've been playing on some of these maps that have tighter choke points, and FD God will sometimes be playing Lucio if there's that kind of meta that they want to go towards. This would indicate that they're either going to be playing the poke compositions or the Ana Brigitte stuff that we've been seeing quite a lot of recently. Unlikely that we'll see like Lucio comms actually being played, although Violet has had some tickles with it in previous series. So I don't think it's looked that great for them. FD God also a former member of the Paris Eternal too, so the fact that he's only been fielded for one of these maps, but he managed to win it potentially, you know, going to be fairly happy about that. But last year was definitely his year of getting into the limelight. This is him kind of dealing with the pressure that comes with being on a championship team with championship expectations. And that's been the pressure for the whole of the Shock this entire season.
Oh, yeah.
They are one of the most scrutinized teams, despite the fact that they're 8-2 in the standings, second overall in North America. And they've been under some of the most scrutiny because, honestly, when you're the back-to-back winners of the Overwatch League, the champions 2 years in a row, the expectations become winning it all.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so even though three-peats are historical impossibilities a lot of the time, they just simply don't happen very often in sports, that you have such a dominant dynasty. That's what the fans thought the potential ceiling was for this team. And the fact that they haven't been able to make it to the May Melee in Hawaii or the June Joust as well has had people wondering whether Shock are at their most vulnerable right now.
I'm a bit of a Shock apologist, though, Josh. I'll always apologize for the Shock. You know, I've got 110 reasons as to why we're seeing what we are, but it is absurd, isn't it? The Shock fans, you know, they're just up in arms about the 8-2 season that they've got. It's like, come on.
But I mean, that it does make sense with the expectations you set for yourself, with how great you were in prior seasons as well. And here's the Shock running something quite unusual. It's a very heavy poke comp, with Glista actually being the one playing the Ashe and Nero back on Farah, like we saw at the beginning of Nepal. But this backline has just been run over. Couldn't reposition quickly enough.
Paris, they just TP straight underneath the Orisa shield and just dive right onto them. And it's very difficult for them to try and hold on. Now, the spam damage coming in from Nero does get the D-Mech. Dan goes down. That's the tank lines essentially removed here. The Shock with an opportunity to recontest this one. Absolutely. The shot's coming through. That's going to be 2 rockets there from Nero. He's not missing. Teleporter still online. Needs to try and take out Onigod, though. 1 shot, 2 shots, that will do it. And Nero on the Farah. This is one of the roles that he is incredibly proficient at.
He really is. Nero has had to become a very heavy jack of all trades this season, playing the May and playing the Echo, roles where perhaps he doesn't look the most comfortable, but get him onto the Farah, get him on the Torb, and he looks amazing. And he has a ton more heroes that he's excellent at too, that he just hasn't had the opportunity to show people on the show. And he is the star player here when you're dealing against a rush comp like Paris. He just has to stay alive and do unbelievable amounts of damage. Oh my word! I think he thought the Khan had already taken the teleporter.
Yeah, I mean a bit of a reminiscent there of the great bamboozle almost, I suppose, when Shutterforce stayed in the spawn on King's Row. I think he imagined that Khan was going to be with the rest of his team, and yeah, not expecting that kind of positioning. Wonderful play from Khan. You remove the Farah, you remove a lot of the damage output that was stopping you from really capping up this point. So Paris breaking through now and looking for opportunities to try and take that checkpoint B, arguably a more difficult point to try and push.
Paris Eternal are incredibly creative, especially on Hanamura with these cheesy strategies around the symmetric teleport and the Amp Matrix. Yeah. A play they love to do on point B as well is teleport to the high ground that you can see here on your right-hand side and have Khan Amp Matrix from up there. He doesn't have the Amp Matrix available right now, but if he did, if he had saved it, that could be what you go for, and they might be going for something similar here.
Yep, TP, the wall as well, but oh my goodness, that's a massive Bionade. It forces out the sound barrier. One ability for one ultimate. Quite a fair trade, almost, sometimes, I guess. The Shock are going to be happy with it at least. Now the Blizzard's coming out, though. Paris want to be catching them into the corner. Choi goes down, Super moving over to the Wrecking Ball. He knows he has to try and stall this one out because Paris are gaining momentum and speed. Holding on to this point now. Vestola still holding on to this Self-Destruct as well. And with the Amp Matrix as well, that is so much damage output that they're going to have to try and push away the Shock. A nice freeze onto Choi there, stops him from contesting this one. The switch over, Nero on the Tracer, just trying to keep this one going. No one's really pressuring him, and now they're chopping and changing. A rotation comes through around the side as Twilight tried to take the high ground, but Vestola was on him, taking him out of the fight. Not going to have that high ground perch position. Super with the Fire Strike takes out Dan. Still in the action. They need to pressure down these targets, and they need to do it now. Just about getting it on. Nero still on the Tracer, still stalling it out. He's the one player left standing that's stopping them from really just getting this time going for them, and there you find it. The Paris Eternal. 3 minutes 33 seconds on the time bank for them, eventually breaking through.
A really good play that we caught there from Vestola, actually, being able to stop Twilight going for that reposition. When you have the spawners always flooding through on Hanamura, one of the best plays you can go for as an Ana is to try and sneak around and take the high ground, either through the left staircase or by flanking all the way around to the right, which is where Vestola caught Twilight. If Twilight gets into one of those high ground positions and can continuously throw Bionades, get heals on everyone, then it becomes really difficult to punish. He has an enormous amount of sustain. So great job from the new off-tank of the Paris Eternal to be able to completely shut that play down before it happened. Paris doing a great job there as well. They engage towards the bottom, really creative use of all of their teleporters. They look practiced, they have crafty strategies. I love watching them, especially on this map.
Yeah, they are so creative with the Sim TP plays as well. And, I mean, that was just a beautiful little showcase, I think, as well, of just little mind games as well. We saw how they broke through on checkpoint A with Khan. This is the Onigod show, I suppose. I mean, Symmetra, when she gets that beam going, when it's charged up, you are just a walking death machine. You are just causing destruction, assuming you can aim, but it's honestly not too difficult as well when she gets going as well. You're just absolutely shredding through opponents. But
he also had 3 turrets set up there that just eviscerated Violet on the Lucio, who was coming out to try and contest.
Slowing you down.
Yeah, Dan gets a free 26% towards his ultimate there as he just fire strikes and coming out the spawn. And the Shock, they've gone over to rush. Violet, Lucio once more here. No FD got in the lineup.
That's what happens when you want to put the Twilight and Violet in. And if you have to switch over to these compositions, which require you to play the Lucio, you often see it coming out. It hasn't looked good in the past, I'm not going to lie. It's looked serviceable, but that's all I'll say for it. Nero with the wall, that does actually land pretty well. That's blocked off and cut off a bit of the members there from the Paris Eternal. They're going to be pushing forwards, and now this wall has actually completely cut them off, but the Shock have to sustain. They're able to stay alive onto the point, and they've got the damage on top of it to clear up a lot of the Paris Eternal from trying to take that one fight.
Absolutely clean from the Shock. Nothing more you can say about that. They just executed everything they wanted to do perfectly. And now they didn't have to use any ults for it. They weren't threatened by it. They don't have people coming off respawns. This is a great opportunity for a snowball to develop. Even though the Paris Eternal have had good attacks, their attack on Gibraltar was good as well. The Shock are always coming back second with these big counter punches. Just looking like a great team. Are we going to see a similar play? It looks like they would want to teleport somewhere and get value out of this Amp Matrix, but instead they're just going for the wraparound play.
Yeah, they're going to be taking the low ground, wrapping all the way around. They have a couple of options here. Trading one choke point for another, I suppose.
Good position for an Amp Matrix, though.
Yeah, this time the TP comes through. This is going to create some mind games. Comes around the side, and look at that. Trying to deny the high ground, swinging away. Super has the shatter, just trying to escape out of the Blizzard. Charge comes through. Blizzard as well. The sound barriers on both of these sides. Shatter comes through, catches onto Glister. Stan just dropping them down. The ice wall as well. This is looking a bit like cranking some 90s onto the point. So many different angles happening. I mean, it's just absolutely absurd what we're witnessing. The shock, though, the shatter comes through, doesn't connect. Maybe stolen a little bit there. Cheated out of it, if you will. The Paris Eternal still holding on to this one, but we've only got Still Alive. Has the TP to get back onto the point and contest it. We're in a position now. Didn't give up a single tick.
I think they outbrained themselves there, Brent. I don't exactly know what Twilight's Amp Matrix was going for. They went
we saw intersection, the walls, the May walls, the Sim walls coming through, all intersecting. I mean, it was mental.
And I think Twilight got lost in the middle of it because the Amp Matrix came down incredibly strangely, and then he was the first pick to end up falling, utilizing his Immortality Field to keep the rest of his team alive. The more creative you get, the more the comms have to be perfect, and we've already heard from Glister in the recent interview that the comms have been something that the Shock have been struggling with just a little bit. But here they go, wrapping around again.
Yep, TP this time up to the high ground. So they can't really be jumped on. Dredro falls. Wonderful little pick for them. Paris Eternal actually opting to use their teleport up onto the high ground. The wall not enough to try and push away that damage, and Dan frozen up and taken out. Now the Shock in control at this point with the D-Mech onto Vistola. This is starting to feel inevitable. Naga does have the Blizzard, but is he going to be able to even get onto the point? He's going to take so much damage just trying to contest this one. The pin off onto the side connects, and yeah, unable to really use that Blizzard to try and lock them up. So the Shock coming back at them with an equally impressive time there. 2 minutes, 5 seconds on their time bank, and it's going to be obviously reduced down for both sides here. And,
incredibly even. Incredibly even. What I love from the Shock is how decisive and quick they were. All right, there was a little bit of confusion the first time around, I think, with the backline of where to end up positioning. But the second time they went in, that direct teleport up to the high ground, they made that decision so fast. And they were too quick for Dredro to understand what was going on. The main support from the Paris Eternal, if you want to put it like FD God's replacement, I suppose, for Paris, although I guess technically he's replacing Neptuno, who came before him. But this guy got completely taken off guard. The Shock were on top of him before he could possibly react, because he just didn't think about the threat as soon as they were setting up the teleport. And Paris could not win the 5v6. The rest of the Shock just dominated the point. We're seeing so many creative looks from both of these teams. Both teams very, very flexible right now. And the meta does seem fairly open to be able to play a large variety of different backline, tank lines, DPS lines as well. I haven't seen anyone run this composition from the Shock necessarily, but it did end up getting destroyed somewhat early on. The backline from the San Francisco Shock is going to have to rotate much better, much more cleanly this time around.
Yeah, in theory, Violet should have a lot of distant targets to fly away to for safety, but Twilight is the one who's really going to be susceptible to a lot of dive attempts. So TP up, this time over onto the high ground. It's a bit of a bait, I think. They don't even want to take it. They just drop straight down. Nero gets calm though, and it's all on Nero. So much pressure actually when the Paris Eternal are trying to take this point that he just gets a kill, gets a pick off with the damage boosted rockets coming through. Naga with the icicles finds one. Almost bringing him down in the process, but forces out the ice block. Off onto the high ground, Vistola taken out. This TP still up, still causing problems for him. Nero just trying to avoid and dodge the damage coming his way, and he does stay alive.
Great play from Nero, but also that first kill was set up from a Hulk from Super, and really good coordination from the two of them. Hulk comes through, grabs a couple of players up, Twilight went for a Bionade at the same time, and then you have Nero's damage-boosted rockets coming through. Good coordination from the whole of the Shock to be able to just rip apart the Paris Eternal's death ball. They're all trying to path together, and if you can grab that Hulk to be able to pull some players apart and isolate them, that's your win condition.
Now they've set up the Paris Eternal onto the point here. Nero does have the barrage, but often it's a bit of a death sentence when you try and offload it into the face of the enemy team. Big Bionade. Dan and Naga are going to be caught with that one. The Amp Matrix off onto the side here. It's a bit of an awkward angle that they're trying to play this one for. And Dan forced to move his shield right around the corner. The barrage comes through right up into the sky. Blizzard laid down though, and that's going to be Nero taken out. A couple of players on the Shock though, just withstanding that Blizzard for the time being. And now we see the sound barrier being used. Dredro wants to take this fight further.
wants to try and keep his team back into it, but with Bob onto the field, it's so hard to withstand this much damage coming their way. The Sim Shield as well. Paris still in a pretty good position, and Nero, one of the only players left standing to try and pump in that damage, will be taken out. Right in the overtime, pressed all the way to Paris Eternal, finally going to be able to get checkpoint A. They're going to be awarded a couple more seconds now, 30 to be precise, to try and make some magic happen.
And that triggers some changes for the Shock as well. Nero moving over to the Doomfist, great in these OT clutch scenarios. Glister on Tracer too, and Super moving to the Winston. They're looking to try and attack and harry the Paris Eternal as they come through, see if they can get onto that vulnerable backline. Vestola, he's been so good in a lot of these scenarios, but we haven't seen a massive self-destruct. That could be a huge difference maker.
Bit of a bait there from the Paris Eternal. They used the TP up onto the high ground opposite. Now they've all taken the position and down onto the low ground. Only got falls. And Dan's finding it hard to try and get onto any sort of targets. The Shadow is good. It connects onto Glister, but the bomb might just be even better. And Choi with the recall. The mech comes down. Dan is taken out, eviscerated. Nano boost onto Troy to keep him alive for just that little bit longer. And he's going to be putting in that constant pressure, but the fight isn't over just yet. The Paris Eternal still finding the kills going their way as Twilight falls. Not going to have those Bionades now. Super comes in on the Wrecking Ball off onto the side, just rolling through them, but Dan also, just to get back into the action as fast as humanly possible. Khan, he's got the Amp Matrix on the high ground. He's managed to take out two as Violet and Super are removed. Can they still withstand this kind of pressure? It's so difficult, but the spawners coming through. It's advantageous for them still. A great post-bomb into the corner, removes them all, and Nero gonna get beamed down. Absolute pandemonium onto the point. The power driver down, just trying to keep him up. Khan is doing so much work right now.
Khan is unbelievable. He's always in the right place at the right time, and his aim is just phenomenal. He's been able to keep Onigot alive in the midst of that too. His turret's doing so much work. They got one tick, they got two ticks. The Paris Eternal have turned this from an impossible scenario into a situation where the San Francisco Shock are looking at giving up 4 objectives here. Paris have got everything, and the Violet comes back out. He's got the sound barrier, Bren.
Yeah, the beat comes through, the damage, Super just swinging through it. The Immortality Field unable to keep them up, and Super goes down. Naga on the Tracer, he's got to come up huge now. Needs to collect these picks for the rest of his team to try and follow up on it. The post-bomb from Glister takes out Dan, not going to have to tank in the fight. Wonderful tracking from Naga, and now he's in the backline with the post-bomb. The stick comes through, he's just about clutched it for them. Overtime comes through to boop away from Dredro. The Paris Eternal, they cap it up. 4 on the board for them in the overtime in an almost impossible scenario. And oh my word, a round of applause to Khan for that one.
Is anyone else getting hints of the Paris Gladiators game? That is the kind of play right there that turns it from, okay, they've got a chance of winning Hanamura, into they are heavily favored. To go from a scenario where you're, 3v3 on the objective, incredibly scrappy fight,
with
barely
the
able to take a
spawns
tick.
as well.
Yeah, all the overtime spawns for both teams, by the way, so Paris Eternal trying to come back in. They're miles away from the objective with those crazy OT spawns, and they somehow turn it around. Huge amount of credit to Khan to be able to collect big picks through his Amp Matrix and then keep Onigot alive at the front line. Naga coming back on Tracer, just all the pieces popping off for Paris. Vestola as well has been phenomenal. Every time Nero tries to get value out of the barrages, Vestola is there. Vestola harrying and harassing Glister all the time as well, putting pressure on Super. This Paris Eternal squad is coming online, and all they needed, I think, is a little bit of a morale boost. If they're able to transfer that team fight into a win on Hanamura, the Shock might be shook.
Yeah, I think it gets dangerous, doesn't it? This Paris Eternal squad, so many people doubting them from the start of the year in terms of what they would be capable of. We'll find out if we are going to get those echoes of that Gladiators match where they were able to reverse sweep now. Glister on the sim, going to be TPing up now. The top left high ground here, rotating around, and they've caught out Dredro.
Again. They're finding him and being able to isolate him, and he just isn't quick enough at being able to respond as soon as the teleporters come down. The rest of the Shock should be able to transition this into a pretty easy team fight. Onigod's also going to fall. Immortality Field is better. For Paris, honestly, it's just about making sure you have ultimates up to be able to defend point B at this stage.
The way that team fight went, though, nobody fell on the side of the Shock. And, yeah, they're going to be awarded quite a bit of time, honestly. It gives them an opportunity now.
They could go for the
Potentially
same
multiple team fights.
Brent, they could go for the same kind of Paris Eternal play where they go for a teleport into an Amp Matrix.
Oh, they're not wasting
Use their
time.
teleporter already, though. They are so fast. They're there before the Paris Eternal can even possibly respond.
Yeah, I mean, that's the decisiveness that you want to see if you're a Shock fan right now. The Immortality Field is late. Dan gets taken out. Super just desperately trying to stay alive, but look at the damage coming through. Naga with 3. A wonderful approach. A wonderful response from the Paris Eternal. That could have been really scary.
Yeah, the Shock valuing speed of getting to the objective there more so than setting up an Amp Matrix and having a big fight where they push Paris away. I'm a little confused as to why Twilight didn't invest that ultimate, because it looks to me like a great position to be able to use it. And you've given Paris ultimates to make this final fight a good one.
And a lot is going to come down to this now. By the time these teams get into the action.
Here they go, the Paris play.
They've taken it out of their playbook. The TP comes through, but Paris, they immediately respond. The symbol comes up, it's going to be cutting them across, so they can't get Valiant on an ultimate, and they've dropped them down. The pin comes through, Don gets taken out though in the middle of the charge. Not able to take him across off the point, but it matters not in the end. The Paris Eternal holding strong once more, and they brought it down to the final 25 seconds. They've dragged the ultimates out of the San Francisco Shock as well. And the question is, how are they going to be able to contest this in time?
There's 15 seconds. They've somehow turned a 2-minute time bank into having 3 chances of attacking point B. That's the pace that the Shock are playing at right now. And they still have some good ultimates. It looks like it's going to be on Choyobin to be able to touch this. If a boop comes through... No, okay, so they are going to be able to trigger overtime.
Anybody
Paris are playing
touch?
so aggressively.
Oh, Choi with the TP right into the backline, just about got it, but look at this approach now. The Paris Eternal read exactly what they've got to do, and Twilight goes down. No more heals for them. It's got to be big clutch moments now from the Shock from here on out if they want a chance of winning this map. The bomb into the sky, Vastola with a self-destruct. It's going to be blocked for a lot of that damage, but the recall mech, you can't block that. Maybe Avas had a point. Maybe he was correct about something for once. We don't know. But we're seeing Vastola still holding on. The beat down, the Paris Eternal winging it out, and there you go. That's going to be the map going their way. Wonderful form from them, taking Hanamura and potentially setting us on course for the reverse sweep.
What an outrageous map from Khan in particular, but also you got to give credit to the rest of the squad too. Huge moments from Naga, huge moments from Onigot on Symmetra as well as Vastola. But Khan is just there in every single scenario, doing work for the rest of their team. This has turned into a match, Bren, and you cannot count the Paris Eternal out after what they did to the Gladiators recently.
You can feel the momentum building, can't you? The Paris Eternal well on their way, potentially, from really just stealing away this win from the Shock when they came so close. But we'll find out. It's not over just yet. Don't want to call it. Absolutely. One more map, really, for Paris Eternal to get on the board for that 5th and final map. Or will the Shock be closing it out? We're going to be finding out soon enough, ladies and gentlemen. Do not go anywhere. You don't want to miss it.
Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
Welcome back from the break, everybody, and yeah, we're going to be heading into the game soon enough. It's really shaping up, you know. You can feel something building behind the scenes here. The Paris Eternal, you never want to count this team out. They are becoming one of my favorite teams to watch, just in terms of this passion, I think, the storyline as well, of all these guys as well, coming out of a region that's typically been, you know, kind of like shoved to the wayside, especially in Europe as well. A lot of the Overwatch scene back, you know, stretching all the way back to 2016. I think a lot of people, maybe not 2016, let's say 2017 and onwards, but really kind of discrediting the scene to a degree. And these guys, they're out here to prove something today.
They certainly are. And not only that, they're out here looking to completely turn their season around. It's not that they had a bad beginning to the season by any means, but it was a mediocre start to the season, but that's almost better than people expected. What you could start to see from this team is that they've become a genuinely good team, breaking away from the middle of the pack. They're 5-5 right now. If they end up winning this game, which, okay, it's still a long way off, so I'm not saying they're favored by any means. But if they're able to turn it around and reverse sweep the Shock like they did to the Gladiators, they got Vancouver coming up. They could start edging ahead. 7-5 would be an outrageous record for the Paris Eternal, way better than anyone was expecting. They do say, though, Brent, the third map is always the hardest to get against championship-level teams like the San Francisco Shock. You can get 2-0 up on them, you can get whatever, but being able to actually close it out is very difficult. So I think that the Paris Eternal have a massive uphill struggle here. Every single map is going to get more and more progressively difficult for them to take.
Oh yeah, for sure. The championship mentality that they've got as well. When we were talking about the expectations of the Shock, I suppose, and I guess the kind of fan narratives of, you know, expecting that three-peat of, you know, another championship win, and, you know, being all doom and gloom about some of their performances not making it into the tournaments. You've got to remember that, you know, the reason for that is because these guys have just buckets of experience under their belts, and you know, it showcases in scenarios like this. Some teams might get put in this situation, they can feel the momentum slipping away from them, teams like the Gladiators, but when you've been put in this kind of situation many times, you can recall on that knowledge and you can start putting it in your game as we head over to Hollywood as the map. And the Shock are going to be looking to try and stop this ball from rolling out of control. The metaphorical snowball going down the hill, gaining mass, speed, momentum.
I love it. You could be a physics professor, Brent.
Thank you.
Could.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm very interested to see, honestly, what happens as we get deeper into this series. It is one thing for Paris to pull off a reverse sweep once, but it's very difficult for them to be able to do it twice. We've only seen 2 reverse sweeps happen this entire season, and we're deep into it. You know, we've had a lot of matches be played, but we've
only seen 2 reverse sweeps.
I may be forgetting one, Bren, but as far as I can remember, it's only the Defiant against Atlanta and then Paris against the Gladiators. There've been like big comebacks and stuff in our BO, well, not BO, but first to 4 games. You know, the big comeback in the Jujutsu finals down from 3-1, but that's not a true reverse sweep in the same sense. Yeah. So it is still very difficult to be able to come back from these situations, and the Shock have many opportunities to be able to close it out. This is another interesting comp coming out from the Paris Eternal. They're going to run Dawn on Orisa, slow things down a little bit with a Bad Mercy backline, which applies damage boost onto Onigon and Naga as required. This is a large amount of poke and some air control and like a potential for backline harassment as well with Naga. He's just so good at the Echo, why wouldn't you run him on it in a lot of these comps?
Yeah, absolutely. And the amount of damage you output on the Echo, it's so hard to play against sometimes. She really does feel like, especially in the hands of someone like Naga, it's like, what can I even do in some of these scenarios? You can see him searching for angles here with the sticky bombs. If he catches it onto one target, he could be in for a good time. But now the Shock are engaging in with this double bubble, trying to get a bit of positioning here. So Nero might opt to try and jump onto the high ground, still at the choke point. Naga still pumping in the damage as well, just chopping and changing. But the important thing to note here is that Twilight has built up the ultimate, but they might not even need it. There we go, Nano Boost applied onto them. A little bit of a tickle there onto Drido to take them out. And that is going to be the teamfight win here for the San Francisco Shock.
Simple stuff. Utilizing that ultimate cycling to be able to generate themselves a teamfight win. Good work from Smurf to be able to play alive. It's very difficult to continue to take that damage and feed Twilight the ult charge without just planking against a team that has... Yeah, it has damage boosted Echo and the Ash shooting at you constantly. That focusing beam can be utterly deadly. But now Shock have a 5-minute time bank, plus a primal to try and take high ground.
Absolutely, yeah. This primal could be nasty to try and shove them off. He's taking a lot of spam damage. Needs to be careful of this one. Now he's going to be jumping right up. Knows that he's safe. Khan doesn't want to opt to be using. Maybe the Immortality Field wasn't available. I'm not too sure, but in the end, ended up paying for it with his life. And yeah, with a Smurf just marking Dredro to make sure that the res isn't able to come off. And that's going to be the Shock actually breaking through a very difficult portion of Hollywood as well. Taking away that high ground control. So imperative.
Yeah, unless I'm totally mistaken there, I think Khan just opts not to use his Immortality Field. Perhaps feeling that if he uses it too early on in the fight there, he's just going to lose the team fight anyway. Oh my word, Nero with the headshot onto Naga too. This is another one of Nero's excellent picks, the Hangzhou he's been so good at in recent years, and it lets them just dominate this high ground control too. Naga moving over to the Farah to me feels like a bit of a heat check for the San Francisco Shock. It's like, okay, you don't have Ansett, who's going to deal with me? And it's Nero.
Yeah, Nero trying to hit their shots, and at the end of the day, with the Shock's composition, it feels like they can almost just opt into ignoring that side of it. Just run straight past the Farah when you're running this double bubble comp, rotate the ultimates, and they did it to win that team fight. A nano boost applied onto, I believe it was Smurf, and they're just still building it up. Now the contest comes through from Paris here, trying to get this card in, but no one's going to be able to touch this. They don't really have anything to try and engage and contest quickly other than Onigod on the Tracer. As soon as that recall's forced out, it's a dangerous tidings for them. Supercharger from Darn. Is it enough damage to not really break through this one? Nero with the Dragon coming down and out. The arrows as well. Absolutely finding their marks here. Now the Paris Eternal did get the res off, so they might be able to just hold them at this choke point. Nice little halt as well to yoink them down, but Violet on the Lucio. That's a cursed image in the kill feed. Finding 2 pickoffs.
He's been playing a lot of it so far this season, and he does seem to be getting more comfortable. The other thing is, the Paris Eternals comp doesn't really have anything that can pressure the backline of the Shock that much. It was only Onigod playing the Tracer that Violet has to worry about, so he can play much more aggressively. Paris are going to go to a full rush comp as we get closer to this final checkpoint. They want to apply a lot more pressure to the Shock, turn up the pace.
Yeah, and that bubble into the backline. Smurf is just really distracting the supports. And it's a wonderful beat. Yeah, Violet will be taken out in the end, but Smurf with this Primal Rage, he's just managed to stop all of them in their tracks. You can see the Nano Boost comes out as well, and he's going to be doing so much work. He cannot be stopped. An absolute speed run of Hollywood here from the San Francisco Shock. Only one more player to really remove here. The Store comes out now from Darn, but he's beamed through, taken out momentarily. Vistola also going to be taken out of this mech as well. In fact, not even going to get an opportunity to touch. 3 minutes 42 seconds is an unbelievable time.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about the potential for a Paris Eternal reverse sweep. The dream is dead, man. It's dead already. A 3-minute 42 time bank, I don't think you can recover from that. I think the Shock have come out determined to not let that happen to them. They will not be casualties. They will not get brought up repeatedly. Oh, do you remember that time that Paris was able to reverse sweep the Gladiators and the Shock? That is not happening here. That's an emphatic statement that the Shock have put out. 3-minute 42 time back on Hollywood is essentially no resistance from the defense in order to set a time like that.
It's just monstrous. Just absolutely monstrous. Even the areas of Hollywood where you would think you were able to take a better team fight, the Shock were just winning it straight away. Like, for example, here, Checkpoint Beta, we're about to pass over. This high ground control, so important to try and just buy a couple of minutes off the clock, maybe even get a hold off there. But they just fell over instantly. And it's... Yeah, as much as we were setting up the narrative, what do you call it, Josh? What's the correct analogy here? House of Cards or something? I don't know. The House of Cards, we were building it, you know, me and you were going piece by piece. We were just, you know, you had the aces, I had the queens, you know, I was just trying to set it up. And the Shock, they just blow it over straight away.
They did.
It's not happening.
The Paris Eternal would have to come out with something absolutely monstrous. I don't know whether they have it in them. I don't know whether any team in the league has it in them to be able to respond to that. They could not come up with the right adjustments to be able to put pressure on the Shock. And the Shock just dominated them, always having control of the tempo there. And Smurf just running over them. Smurf's Winston, by the way, recently has just been phenomenal. And it seems like Paris still don't exactly know what they want to run. Eventually going to move to, yeah, the rush comp again, this time with the May and the Sim. Their Symmetra plays have been really
Oh
creative.
no, they're changing their mind.
Again, they've spent half a minute in spawn changing their comps.
Yeah, eventually going to be settling here on this particular composition. They don't have, it's not necessarily the double bubble, but it is very dive-esque, and it gives them more windows, I suppose, to fight more frequently outside of like the bubble cooldown that the Shock are trying to fight over. But Smurf goes deep. Oh my goodness. He's just going to grab that mega health pack as well, but he will be taken out anyway. The Shock need to win this fight out. If they can stagger out any sort of kills, it could be beneficial for them, but nobody was really dealing with Onigod. And Nero falls, which means the Pass Eternal with the closest spawn point are going to be in a situation now where they can take a better fight.
They certainly can. Dan has gotten deep. They've controlled the... Wow, that's a lot of damage on the Glister as well. He's going to have to go off. 2.5 minutes now. Dan under so much pressure. Khan has got to heal him up. They're going to be closer to a nano boost potentially. Twilight, though, he's getting great pace as well. Both Annas up to 90% as we see this next fight is going to have 2 nanos.
Yeah. Unable to really finish off the Winstons may have just actually spelled defeat for them. Only got taken out by the arrow straight to the head. You don't really think about it as a Tracer counter, but Nero's making it seem that way anyway. And with the nano boost straight up as well, Smurf just diving right into the back line. He realizes probably can't chase that kill, can I? No, has to leap back to the safety of his team.
But that's a fantastic
good news for the Paris Eternal. Yeah,
by Smurf and Glister. They dive onto Dredro and Khan with their nano boost. And it's about initiating. The Paris Eternal's backline ended up being pushed back so that Khan didn't have a sightline onto Dan to nano him instead. So Paris Eternal's backline just fell over. And now they can come back in with their own nano, sure, but the Choyobin's waiting to grab them. They've got Grav Pulse, they've got Grav Dragon. This is done.
Com's going to come through right around the corner. You can see the defense matrix being held, but there we go. Patience from Choi ends up paying off big time. The Grav comes through, the Pulse Bomb wasn't really even necessary there from Glister as they already had the damage coming through. Paris do not want to give this one up though. The Duplicate, a very powerful ultimate. Naga almost being taken out, bursted down to very low amounts of HP, but finally builds up this Primal Rage, and an opportunity now is here for the Paris Eternal. As Choi gets picked off, just about starting to build up a bit of that capture time now as well. Naga has to use the flight. He's going to be coming, actually, that in the staircase. You can see they've caught Smurf, but Smurf builds up the Primal. He's going to be using it to stay alive and still keep this one going. Paris have gained positioning at the point, however, and it's going to be very difficult for the Shock to try and recontest this and push them away.
There's
Dragon across the point, splits them across. Are they going to be able to capitalize off of it? It doesn't look like it. The Paris Eternal, they just weather the storm, batter down the hatches, and now 2 ticks, 2.5 ticks, looking for the third to try and close this one out.
The nano.
It's more and more possible for them. Nobody's onto the point. Someone has to touch this onto the Shock, and now you see the nano boost coming out. Smurf just about dodging and juking, trying to survive on 1 health. Naga's trying to chase him down as well inside, but surely no one's going to be able to touch us on the Shock side. They're not. 3 minutes now for the Paris Eternal, taking out this staggered fight.
And that's, if we dial our brains all the way back to the beginning of where it started to go wrong for the Shock, they had Grav, they had Dragon, and they had Pulse Bomb. But Choyobin's Grav was so labored. Vestola was all over him with the defense matrix, and Choyobin ended up in the Paris Eternal's spawn because he was just... It was so messy the way that they set up for that team fight. So they've opened the door for Paris to try and get this momentum going. It's a boop into a sleep for Dan, and that is a nano boost wasted from Khan.
Wonderful play there from the backline of the San Francisco Shock. However, doesn't stop them, at least from taking out Smurf. And the high ground control. I mean, how many times have we been talking about it over the course of this series as well? It's so important in multiple maps, but in particular here on Hollywood. With Paris in control of this, it does give them this window, the possibility that they can try and match the time ever so slightly, maybe, with the Shock here. Now the Duplicate comes through Naga onto the Winston. He'll be trying to dive onto the backline here, but he just whacked his head onto the top of one of the banisters. Unable to really get too much done, but now the Primal Rage is built up. Just searching for a target, but look at him, just dodging and juking and avoiding a lot of it. So Naga gets really nothing done with the Duplicate. Still, the positioning is forced, and now that he's back in the Echo form, might be able to get something a bit more done. Nero, though, he moved up to the Sombra a little bit earlier, actually, in a previous team fight, and he's already building up a lot of that ult charge up to this next EMP. The neutral hacks as well coming out big for them. Finding a couple of pickoffs for them. Just need to try and escape here. So the Shock are just opting into one last contest, Josh.
Might look silly that Glister killed himself on his own pulse bomb, but that kill on Dreedro was actually quite important. Glister's got faster spawns, and that allows the Shock to be able to get back in. They have a Nano, they have EMP. The EMP only caught onto Vestola, and he was already using his ultimate. That's a bit of a disaster for the Shock. Oh, and the Nano boost onto Smurf, and he's just getting nothing done with it either. He might be able to turn this desperately.
And Glister, no one's really pressuring him as well. Still, the D-Mech comes out onto Choi. He's not going to be available in this fight. Glister's desperately trying to get that kill onto Dan, but Onigod's going to be marking him, and that is going to be 2 minutes. So, no matter what happens, really, the Pass Eternal are not going to be able to match the blistering pace that the Shock really set. But at least they have an opportunity to really prolong this series out.
The Shock's defense has not been that great. It was decent when it came to checkpoint A, and then they beefed the final engagement. There on B, they had some nice ideas, but they couldn't just stick the landing the whole way through. But it just doesn't matter. They set such an incredible time on their attack that now there's just enormous pressure on Paris. The Shock can play fast, aggressive, continue to stall this payload. And Paris, even if they win all of the team fights, they're going to be at a disadvantage again.
Huge Bionade from Khan. Connects onto 3. The backline is decimated. That is absurd. Wonderful performance there. The Pass Eternal, I mean, just the back of that one ability being used, they were finding so many opportunities. The cart will keep going. The Shock staggered and stalled it out, so now only a single minute remaining.
They lost 30 seconds there for that team fight win because the Shock are just throwing their bodies on the point. They could lose all of the upcoming team fights, and as long as they drag it out into overtime, they've essentially won the series. That's the pressure that Paris is under. They have to not just win these team fights, but win them quickly.
Yep, and stay mentally resilient in the process. You can see the nano boost here onto Dan. He's already being chunked down very, very low. Has to try and get the heals from the rest of his team. Great bomb over the top. That's Naga. Removed. The Deadeye as well being held for such a long time. I don't think Dreedro really expected it, just peeking his head out for a moment to see if he could assist the rest of his team. It's a one-team fight, and the Paris Eternal, we cannot afford to take that fight. They're going to be backing all the way to the spawn door. 25 seconds remaining now, Josh.
They need something fabulous. Either that or they have to play for the draw. It's Vestola's ultimate that could potentially change the tide of the fight. He's been pretty conservative with his self-destructs, normally saving them for the end of the fight, valuing the damage that he can do, the pressure, the defense matrix. But a big self-destruct here would be their only saving grace. There's no chance, though. It's going to OT.
Yeah, the dive onto the back line, and it is going to be going to the overtime. Onigod is going to be getting that quick little headshot onto Nero as well. He's just cleaning up so many of these targets. The overtime is starting to tick, but it's looking more and more inevitable as they're trying to take the fight. The nano boost onto Smurf. This backline just trying to push him away. Great whip shot, but can anybody even touch the point is the question. And the answer is just about. Naga, the recipient of the nano boost, builds up the duplicate. Moving over now to the Diva. Smurf and Nero are down. They've got to try and win out this team fight right now. Double Divas on the battlefield. These bombs are going to be coming out in just a moment as well. It's been built up now to self-destruct straight over the top. Trying to catch any of the targets. The recall onto the mech does a decent amount of work as well. Glister with the post bomb laid down. The Dreedro shield is going to block it. But now the spawn is coming in from the Shock. The Deadeye from on high. No one was able to stop Nero. And Naga will go down. Double flashbang into the backline, into the Fan. The Hammer. The echoes are so Minsu, but it won't be enough to try and stop them. The Shock with the overtime spawners unable to really touch this point off, and the Paris Eternal are far too healthy. It will be going to the overtime. They will hopefully be able to turn this in to that third and final checkpoint to get it into a potentially drawable scenario.
Glister's making it difficult for them, and Smurf might get up towards this. No, okay, he gets taken out before the Nano can come and help him. Nero finds a pick on Naga, but here we go again, though. Choyobin on the ball. Violet, though, he died just after popping the rally. And finally, eventually, the San Francisco Shock are going to die. But Bren, like we've been saying this whole time, the Shock didn't need a good defense because they already set such a blistering pace on their attack. It was the third fastest attack of all time on Hollywood. 3 minute 42 in the time bank. And Paris are going to be kicking themselves because now they have to play for a draw, and they barely have less time than if it was all the way back at the beginning again. They have 3 minute 42 in the time bank. It's almost impossible to full hold a team, not give up a single tick in that time.
Ready for battle.
I really don't know how you do it, to be honest. This is where you know, if we were to peer into one of the many possibilities of the Paris Eternal getting the draw and potentially continuing the series, I mean, it would just be absolutely astounding. But you're up against that 3 minutes 42 to try and stave off a single tick on the point against the San Francisco Shock. I mean, all the power to them, but it's looking difficult. How did they end up doing this now? So the Shock are going to be on the attacking side. They're teasing us a little bit here with the Wrecking Ball. I think Smurf might be making the change over to the Winston. Yeah, so they're going to be running this double bubble. Similar combo to what they were running the previous time. Very proficient at this, knowing where to find their windows of opportunity to attack.
Nero was great on the Hangzhou, but it looks like that one's going to be swapped out. So Violet going over to Brig as well. That takes a little bit of pace away, but it gives them more stability. At the end of the day, they only need a single pick, so a single pick will be good enough. The Paris Eternal's composition is incredibly aggressive. The Tracer, the Echo, so they're just hoping to weather the storm, build up those ultimates, and convert.
Oh, Naga going down. That is brutal for them. Going to get the Bionade as well. Does catch on to 2 targets here. Twilight very, very low. The Paris Eternal unable to really hold on to this one, though. Already at a point getting pressured heavily. They're going to have to commit the bodies to it. And that is going to be the death sentence there. The San Francisco Shock going to be taking away Hollywood. GG's in the chat. The 3-1 is where the scoreline will lie. And a decent win. Oh, I want to as well give a little bit of credit as well before we really start talking about the Shock here for the Paris Eternal as a squad as well, considering the expectations of this team. They really know how to make some of the best sweat.
Yeah, they had to sweat. I mean, the Shock had to work for this win. It was by no means a free one. And if you looked at the beginning of the season, if you looked a couple of months ago, honestly, you would have expected the Shock to very easily win this game. The Paris Eternal are growing into a team that can deliver upsets. But crucially, the difference here is, when you're playing against the Gladiators, you have to catch one of these top teams slipping. And it's the job of the mid-table teams like the Paris Eternal to jump on those opportunities. If you see you have a chance to win a game, you have to capitalize. And that's what they did last week. This week, the Shock didn't really give them that opportunity. They were able to close it out in both of the early 2 maps, and then they set a dominant offense when it came to Hollywood. So Shock making a lot less mistakes this time around, a lot fewer mistakes rather, compared to their London game.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at our player of the match presented by Xfinity. And we're going to be handing it to, it's only a couple of players that really played the entirety of the match. I mean, Shock were making so many chops and changes, but ended up giving it to Glister this time for his performance. For me, personally, I was incredibly impressed with his Tracer gameplay, actually. A lot of it keeping Suna in check as well, when Suna was in to play the Tracer as well. Very important role, but just really creating these massive openings off the back of his individual play.
He's been great for them. There were a lot of questions about how this guy would fit into their team rotation. We didn't see very much of him at the beginning of the season, back when Violet was playing stuff like the McCree, and now Glister's been in playing a range of different stuff, but specifically the Tracer, having filled the role of striker when he left, and he's been good at it. He has been good. I don't think that this is one of those player of the matches where Glister by far and away outshone the rest of his team, but he's doing he's putting in a solid performance, and he's filling big shoes here as well, so credit to him for that performance. But today, I think from the Shock was more about proving that their system of rotations and their backline makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Showcasing to the world that they have a plan when they come into a game, when they're making these subs, and they know when to run Smurf and Super, they know when to run Ants, and they know when to run Violet or FD God. A reminder that this was the first time that Violet rode the Pine this entire season, so clearly there's cogs turning within the Shock's coaching system.
Absolutely, yeah. You never want to be resting on your laurels, as the reference goes, Josh. You know, you don't want to be resting on your laurels.
What are laurels, Brent?
It's like a coin, isn't it? Like a type of, is it a coin? It's like a
type
of
it's coin. A coin. Yeah, it's a coin. Yep.
Anyway, we're going to find out what a laurel is on the other side of the break, because I don't know what it is. I'm going to look it up afterwards. I'm going to see just how much of an idiot I made of myself. But we'll see you soon enough. We've got another match as well coming up on the other side of it, so do not go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you soon enough.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Xfinity, the preferred internet provider of the Overwatch League.
Welcome to Game Break presented by Pringles. We're joined now by Ans from San Francisco Shock. Ans, congratulations on the win today. Ans 선수, 오랜만에 봐서 너무나도 반갑습니다. 승리 축하드립니다.
아, 감사합니다. Thank you so much.
All right, let's jump right into the question. So this was your first match win that you've played in since coming back. Of course, before this match, you guys beat London Spitfire, but you didn't play that match. So this is technically your first match win. How has it been when you being reunited with your former teammates and the San Francisco Shock in general? 첫 번째 질문은 런던과의 경기에서도 당연히 센쇼이 이기긴 했지만은 이번 경기가 이제 안스 선수가 이제 복귀를 한 다음에 처음으로 경기를 플레이를 하고 승리를 거두신 경기이기 때문에 조금 더 의미가 있는 것 같아요. 안스 선수 어떻게 오랜만에 센쇼에 들어와서 이렇게 경기를 하시고 승리를 하신 소감 한 말씀 부탁드립니다.
일단 되게 오랜만에 다시 오버워치 리그에서 선수로 뛰어서 승리를 쟁취한 기분이 되게 만족하고요. 이제 지금부터 좀 더 좋은 모습 보여줄 수 있도록 노력한다고 좀 말씀드리고 싶습니다.
Alright, I mean, it's been some time since I left Overwatch League and coming back. So coming back to the San Francisco Shock and getting this first win, I do feel very happy and satisfied. And I just want to tell everybody that I will, from this point on, until the end of the season, and forever. I don't know how long it's gonna be, but I'm going to give it my all, give my 100% to every match that I play with the San Francisco Shock. Alright, my second question for you, Ans, is, I think I'm being a little bit careful, but I'm going to be straightforward as well. I believe it is sort of safe to say that it's been a tough season thus far for the San Francisco Shock. Being one of the top teams in the NA and not being qualified for the past two tournaments. Do you think the Shock have found their stride yet this season? 일단 두 번째 질문 어떻게 보면 조금 좀 민감할 수도 있지만은 좀 이렇게 진솔된 질문과 진솔된 답을 좀 듣고 싶어서 안스 선수에게 이렇게 여쭤보고 싶은데요. 어떻게 보면 쇼크는 북미 리전에서 좀 어떻게 보면 탑팀, 이거는 뭐 팩트고 제일 잘한 팀 중에 하나지만 그래도 이번 시즌 어떻게 보면은 좀 많은 힘듦이 있는 것 같아요. 어떻게 보면 이제 두 토너먼트 5월과 6월 토너먼트에 아쉽게 탈락도 했었고 어떻게 보면 서머 쇼다운에서도 살짝 좀 힘들어하는 모습을 보여주고 있는 것 같은데 안즈 선수가 보시기에는 센쇼이 이번 시즌 또 이번 서머 쇼다운에 들어오면서 어느 정도 좀 이제 제자리를 예전의 쇼크의 모습을 좀 찾았다고 보시나요?
그거에 대해서는 저는 어느 정도는 찾았다고 생각을 해요. 왜냐면 이번 연도에 이제 전 시즌까지는 이제 제가 없었는데 이제 제가 다시 돌아왔기 때문에 이제 점점 이제 그 폼을 다시 되찾아가지 않을까 싶습니다.
그러면 이제 안 선수가 보시기엔 이제 안 선수가 들어왔기 때문에 다시 폼을 찾을 것 같다라는 답인가요?
저의 의견이죠. 그렇지 않을까라는.
Alright. So An says that he definitely does. He personally feels like they did find their stride definitely, and they're on their way. Mainly because before the past two tournaments, Ans wasn't in the team. But now it's a different story. Ans is back. He is back as a DPS for the San Francisco Shock. So that is the difference maker, and he personally believes that is going to sort of change how everyone looks at San Francisco Shock. All right, I loved that answer. I loved your confidence, Ans. Thank you so much. That is it for the interview. 안 선수 방금 답 너무 감사드리고요. 인터뷰에서 너무 감사드립니다. All right, let's head back to the desk.
Thank you, Danny. Thanks a lot, Ans, for taking the time for the quick chat. And of course, congratulations to the San Francisco Shock. Love the confidence there, Danny. Like, if you're a DPS player in this league, that's exactly the confidence you need to have going up against literally every other DPS in the league, right? Costa Reinforce, you have to rock up with that alpha energy. You have to think you're the best. Otherwise, why even bother?
Legitimately. As soon as you come into a game thinking that you're worse or that someone else is better than you or all those kind of things, you've already lost the game. You're in your head about it. So you need that confidence, you need to have that drive, and that's what makes Ans one of the best in the world, is he believes he is the best hit scanner in the world, and that historically was true. He needs to get back to that point, but I don't doubt him at all. Not even a little bit.
no,
Yeah.
he seemed confident, therefore I will be confident too. Now, the last time these two teams played was in last year's Summer Showdown, actually, so that one's quite a while back, with Paris winning it out 3-2. But Costa, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of great things happening over on the San Francisco Shock side. I do want to get your thoughts on the Paris Eternal and what we saw from them, not just today, but in general in the Summer Showdown qualifiers so far.
Yeah, drastically less Genji in this Summer Showdown compared to last time. Also a very different team, but it was great nonetheless. This was such a good back and forth by the Paris Eternal. I think as much as Paris lost 3-1, I don't think you can be disappointed about this match. I think they looked really good on this Watchpoint Gibraltar right here. I was like, oh my lord, Paris Eternal is taking it to the San Francisco Shock. They were playing more aggressive, they were controlling more space, and they were just doing a great job. Unfortunately, where I think the Paris Eternal struggles is not their game plan, their strategies, or anything like that. I think they're very good at that. I just think mechanically, at some points, they started falling off towards the end of the series, and you saw that more going on to Hollywood. Not on this point, though. This Hanamura, this was Paris Eternal going full mechanic sicko mode. Everyone flexing their muscles. Onigod, Naga, Khan just somehow staying alive forever, putting out so much damage. Such a great job.